Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Straightforward Farming Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Reed, alongside Nick McCormick. And Nick, it is raining like pouring piss out of a boot.
It is.
It's getting with it.
Yes.
We're projected to get, 3 to 4 inches of rain here. We've already had an inch or whatever it's been now.
I dumped an inch and a half out of my gauge tonight, but I don't know how long it's been since I dumped it. So.
Yeah. So they're saying upwards of possibly 3 to 4 inches if you're under the right cell tonight. We'll see. Time will tell. But I looked at the radar earlier before we started, and it looks like it's going to be here a while, so I don't know. I hear the old sump pump running.
Yeah. The sign said fire risk was low at the forest when I went by.
Did it really? Yeah.
Fire risk is low.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
Yep. So
only you can prevent forest.
That's right.
So.
Smokey the Bear. You don't hear nothing about old Smokey anymore, do you?
No, you don't.
No. You'd think nowadays with all the green initiatives, by God, he'd be the...
I suppose he got old and retired. I don't know.
Could be, yeah.
It's probably animal abuse to have him out there.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it probably is, yeah. And, of course, he could identify, it might be Smokey the Pigeon now. I mean, he may not be a bear anymore. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So you got your tile system put in this winter. You happy with that so far?
Absolutely.
I say the one that we done, and, of course, it was a small scale compared to yours. So far, doing what it's supposed to do.
I couldn't be more happy at this point.
Yeah.
After that big rain we got, I don't know, a week or two ago, there wasn't... I drove up there pretty quickly after it quit raining, and you could tell there had been water across the road, and there wasn't enough water in that field to fill a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
It was all underground, running out of them.
Yep. The funny part about tile is I went to that drainage expo in Iowa there, and, a lot of people might have misperceived the way I was on TikTok. I'm not anti-tile. I know it works phenomenal. But they can't wrap their brain around that we don't have drainage districts, all these tile. I don't have tile districts.
That's literally the only farm I've got that I can tile.
Right. And
it's the only one that has a big ditch that I can tile too.
Yeah, and they just act like, well, you mean you can't get, 10 neighbors together and, run this main 2 miles somewhere to dump it? And I'm like, no, nobody would sign on to that.
No.
And you'll back me up on that. No, you couldn't get 10 guys to agree to do that.
No.
If you wanted to.
If you even had a spot with enough fall, as flat as it is, I don't think you could pull it off if you could get everybody to agree to it.
Right.
And everybody wanted you to level your field. I can drive you to my farm that I just tiled, and I can drive you to a farm not very far from here where they leveled it all fall long. They had dirt pans, this, that, and the other. And right now they've got about, it's a 40-acre field. I'd say they've got about a 27-acre lake.
Yep, I've seen it.
Leveling it made the lake from a 3-acre lake to a 27-acre lake now.
And that truly is a farm there that I don't think you can tile either because it's sort of a swamp.
The road ditch is 6 inches deep. Where are you going to tile it to?
Yep. And how do you do this so let's just pretend, okay, we magically did get 10 guys to agree, yep, you can bring their main through me, but I'm not going to hook onto it because I know how that goes. So we pay to put this in, and then in 5 years, we got that main through there. Yeah, you know what? We will hook onto that. Yeah. Well, now how does that work? You didn't fucking chip in to put it in.
That's kind of like if you run 3-phase power to your farm and went past mine, but now I'll hook onto it.
Right, exactly. So them guys all look at me like I got 2 heads, and it must be different in other places. I'm not saying it's not, but that would never, ever in a million years fly around here. You could not get that done if you tried.
And if you get much south of your house here, you could try to tile, but it ain't going to work.
Right.
And everybody argues with that too. We did a little bit of it 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it's been. The soil doesn't allow it.
No, the telltale sign is just go dig you a hole 3 foot deep and then pour 20-gallon of water in it, whatever, and come back in a week, and the water's still there. It does not go through. It's too much clay.
It doesn't go through clay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they'll argue that, and I get it. And, a lot of guys want to sell tile, and whatever. Not saying it don't work, but it's not for everywhere. It's just not.
No, it's not. Pick your poison.
Yeah, and I've always said too, it's got to be cost effective.
Yeah,
I can't spend
$100 for fun.
Yeah, I can't spend $150,000 to tile 20 acres because I got to run the main 8 miles. I mean,
exactly.
That you can't do that either. So
no, I mean, I suppose you could put a pumping station in or something, this, that, and the other. But like I said, our soil doesn't. You can't get it deep enough south of here so that you don't hit it and still get water to it.
Yeah.
Like water doesn't run through clay; it sits on top of clay.
Right.
From what I've seen.
Yeah, same way. I mean, the
little bit of tile that we did basically ended up being a really good spot to hook the gutters into.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Works good for that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so I think a lot of people just don't understand. And like I say, I'm not anti-tile. It works. I know
I
it
love
works.
it. I just wish I had more ground that I could do it on.
Right. I agree 100%. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of them things.
Yeah. I'm still amazed at the people that are baffled by the rotary ditcher.
Yeah, right. I mean, they've been around here for...
I didn't realize that was our area only deal.
Yeah.
Like,
which I guess maybe in some people's defense, I'll never forget it when I was on Wheat Harvest in 1998. That winter, I worked for a hog farmer in Nebraska. And, of course, where they were at, everything was rolling. It was all terraced, and whatnot. Yeah. And I had mentioned something about cutting ditches in fields or whatever. And, man, he looked at me and he said, "What do you mean cut ditches in fields?" I said, "Well, it's so flat. If you got a little pond out here or whatever, you just go out and you cut a ditch from the pond to the road ditch and, just kind of ooze out. I mean, it's, it's just one of them things." And he asked me that truly. He's like, "So you intentionally go in the field and cut a ditch?" I'm like,
every year, twice a year.
Right. Right. Yep. But yeah, he just could not wrap his brain around. But he didn't have a flat spot on his farm hardly anywhere. So rolling and terraced and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just different. But we try to do most of ours with surface drainage. We got a PTO ditcher, but when I say surface drainage, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's instead of a 12-inch wide ditch that's 6 inches deep, ours might be 30-foot wide, and you don't hardly even notice it's there.
Yeah.
You just farm right across it. It's just enough of a grade to
do it with a dirt pad or something.
Yeah, right. Yep. So
I'm with you there.
Yep.
Rotary ditchers are a half-ass solution to a problem. Like,
I agree.
We do a lot of it, but they're rough as shit. Like,
yeah,
the best thing you can do with one of those is put it in, then run a no-till drill over it, because that
right.
feathers it just enough,
right,
to knock the edge off of it or whatnot. But they can be pretty rough, but they're pretty effective too.
And years ago, a lot of guys would do them with tractors and blades. You'd pitch your blade to where just one corner was digging in, but that would still. It was really bad.
Then you got dirt piled up on the wrong side.
So
usually,
when you crossed it, you went up over the dirt, then down into the
the
little gully, and then they could be rougher than shit. But
if you do it consistently, though, like I said, you can get a little spot there, and then you don't have to do much. Just clean it out a little bit with the PTO ditcher, and you're good. We do a lot of it. If you got a slope, we'll cut them at an angle across the slope. So when the water comes down, it hits that, and it channels over to the edge. And it hits that next one, it channels over to the edge. And you don't have to have a lot, just enough to redirect it.
Sure.
And keep it from running clear down the hill at Mach 10.
Yeah.
I
think a lot of people don't really comprehend how flat it is around here. Like, I've been to the Dakotas and all over. And granted, it's very flat in a lot of them places, but it's a flat roll. And I know that sounds completely redundant to itself, but you know what I mean? It's flat, and then it drops down into a bowl maybe for half a mile, and then it kind of rises back up. But it's not big hills is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Where around here, it is just flat as a table. And then you have no road ditches. I mean, they're 12 inches deep at best.
They weren't deep when they were new, and they're damn sure not deep now.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can't go re-ditching half the county to try to get tile. The county don't give a shit about your water problem in the field. That's the least of their concerns.
Their only concern is water on the road.
Yeah. So, and then what? Every 4 or 5 miles in most spots, there was a big drainage ditch cut in. In the 40s or whenever they done all that. I don't know when it was. And even them are only 8 to 10 foot deep.
And that stops a mile south of here.
Sure. Yep.
There's none of those from here to Effingham.
Nope.
If there is, it's an anomaly. It's not the norm.
But once again, unless there's a true drainage district there, they're constantly fighting themselves because this guy thinks, well, I need to get my ditch cleaned out, so he cleans it out, but the neighbor below him doesn't or whatever, and so the whole ditch hardly ever gets cleaned out at once.
Or it ends up running through a patch of woods and this, that, and the other, and it's all backed up in there, but we can't even get to it to clean it out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the drainage around here, it's kind of funky. I mean, it's not like a lot of other areas. And in other areas, they want every ounce of water they can get. I mean, southwestern Kansas and places, they wouldn't even dream of tiling a field.
Yeah. No doubt.
So people think I'm anti-tile, and I'm definitely not. It works great, but you got to have an outlet for it. I've said that forever.
And you got to It's got to be the right spot for it.
Yeah, and like we talked earlier, even with the pump
I
station,
like airplanes too, but I don't have an airport. So,
right?
I mean,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
and like we said with the pump station, okay, fine, I can pump the water up. Where am I going to pump it to? If I pump in the road ditch, it's going to run right back in the field because the road ditch is 12 inches deep.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
or less.
Or less. Yeah. The road might be lower than the ditch.
Yeah, got a lot of that too.
Got a
Yeah,
lot of that. So now you flooded the road. Well, that's going to go over like a turd in a punch bowl.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
Yep, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. But no, I do like tile when it's, appropriate.
And that's what always baffles me about social media. Rather than try to learn something and ask the question, it's just like, well, you need to do this. It's like, oh, really? So you're going to tell me from 800 miles away that I need to do this?
I've always been amazed about comments. It doesn't matter the topic. It can be tile, it can be politics, it can be whatever. And there's always a keyboard expert somewhere that types before they ever, look through it. Which is why I don't comment a ton, because sometimes if you just play it out in your head long enough, or you look at it long enough, you're like, oh, yeah, that would have been a dumb thing to say, because this circumstance or that circumstance that you didn't realize initially, but everybody's a badass on the internet, and they start typing fast.
I see that all the time on my TikToks. Somebody will ask a certain question, and then like 3 people will be like, just watch the rest of the video, dipshit. He said it at a minute 20, but they can't get to the comments fast enough to show how smart they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I seen a guy on this shop forum that was talking about building a new shop, and immediately, right out the gate, got to heat the floor and spray foam insulation. I'm just hounding this guy. He's like, I'm in Florida. I don't even need heat in the fucking thing.
Yeah, exactly. God heats it year round for me. Yeah.
So
I'm in South Florida.
Yeah, so it's like, just do a little bit of research before you start commenting.
If it's cold, I'm going to find something else to do those 3 days.
Right. Exactly.
I'm gonna relish the fact that it's not sweating my backside off today, and I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, because I don't know hardly anywhere in Florida where it would ever get cold enough for a long enough period of time to bust pipes or whatever. Because, then you always get the smart ass, well, yeah, but it got below freezing in Florida. It's like, well, big deal. But it wasn't like it was down there for a month and a half at 25 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, calm down.
Yeah. Everybody's an expert.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And that's why generally when I post stuff on social media, I'll keep up with the comments for 30 minutes or so, and then I never go back because I just get tired of seeing it and hearing it. Too many stupid people.
Yeah, it does seem to go that way. People are so... I was just talking to another buddy of mine about this the other day. Like, people are so quick to comment and judge these days, and quick to fly off the handle, so on and so forth. Like, in the world we live in now, business-wise, like, in a post-COVID era where everybody's shorthanded, and it's kind of a clusterfuck, really. I mean, it's a cluster right now. Like, and I don't know that it'll ever come back to what it used to be, but I'm like, you can't get that fussy with people because they're the only people that showed up.
Exactly.
You can be mad at your waitress, and the next day you go back to the restaurant, and, well, they're closed today because, they had 3 people show up, and they can't run the restaurant with 3 people.
Yep.
So maybe just be a touch more patient, a touch more lenient on some stuff. Like, maybe point it out, but maybe don't be, an asshole about it.
I don't know that I have, and people call bullshit on this. And it's funny how you see a glimpse of somebody on social media and you think that's who they are, and it's truly not. But I will guarantee for a fact, I don't think I have ever went in a restaurant and ever, or any business for that matter, and just flat ass chewed somebody's ass over something that might have got done wrong or whatever. I'll be nice. I'll give you a chance to fix it. But if it continues to happen, now I'm going to get pissed. But
my thing is like, then take your business elsewhere if it's that big a deal to you. But I have witnessed those situations several times, and I really regret one in particular. My daughter and I were at a Dairy Queen, and this lady had been in the drive-thru, and she come in and just chewed butt up one set to the point that she had the gal that was running the food, because they were swamped. They had 3 people there. It was 2 years ago, when things kind of started to open back up or whatever, but they couldn't get enough staff, and she made the gal cry. Yeah. It was younger, 18 at best, at the most, and just chewing on her, and then started chewing the management, and the management was trying to handle it as nicely as they could be. And I really regret now not going over to her, stopping the situation, I'll buy your lunch.
Yep.
Or it was supper time, I suppose. I'll buy it. I just ask that you don't be a bitch.
Yeah.
When you come back in here again.
Yep.
Because she was being, what she was mad about was in no way, shape, or form the gal running the food out to the car's fault. She had nothing to do with that. She was literally grabbing an order and carrying them out. Grabbing an order, carrying them out. The fact that it wasn't her order had no bearing on the gal dragging them out. There was no reason to chew her out.
Yep.
It wasn't her fault.
Yep.
Order number 6 comes up, she took it to number 6. Order number 7 comes up, she took it to number 7. It was not her fault.
Yep.
There was no reason to jump her.
Yep.
If you want to go to the manager off to the side and say, hey, and then she had to pull the card, well, I know the actual, the big time manager of this deal, and I will have a conversation with her. You go ahead, but you be sure to mention that you were not cordial to anybody in this restaurant.
Yep.
You lead with that. Lead with the fact that you were shitty to everybody.
Yep.
Patrons, workers, everybody.
Yep.
Start with that and then build your story from there and see how concerned the manager is about it.
Yep. I'll never forget when I was working for another farmer, had took a truck down to Effingham to the truck wash to get it washed. And there was a guy in front of me. He was an over-the-road trucker pulling a flatbed. And you could just tell by the way this guy carried himself and the way he was dressed, he was just an asshole. He was not going to be satisfied. I mean, they could have repainted the whole truck and he'd had something to bitch about, And so they're at the truck wash and they pulled him through, washed his truck, and then he pulled out of the bay, and then I was in there washing, and he was going around and just immediately got pissed, speck of dirt here and this and that, So they said, well, bring it around, we'll rewash it. And there was actually nobody in the bay beside me, so he drives it around. They rinse it all out again, just pissed. You couldn't satisfy the guy. And I heard him, he was standing there telling the shift manager that he knew that, basically the general manager of the whole deal there, whatever, and I'm going to call him this and that. And the shift manager had his fill of it because, he looked it over, he's like, this fucking truck's clean, That's just the way it is. And, well, I'm going to call so-and-so, the guy that runs this entire place, and I'm just going to go over your head. And the guy just looked at him and said, that's fine, but I'll bet I call him first.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
No big deal.
My thing is, and I just had this conversation with a couple of buddies of mine that are in business, we're in a society now where there's people on two sides of the fence. There's a few people in the middle, but generally they fall one way or the other. People that have been on one side of the counter and people that have been on the other side of the counter. Yep. And some of those that have been on one side of the counter have never, ever been on the other side.
Yep.
And I will use this as an example, and I don't mean this to come off shitty, but let's say you're a 20-something farmer. Grandpa made the farm. Dad maintained it. You're taking over. You got out of college. You came straight home. You didn't work ag retail for a while. You didn't put any time into co-op. And that's fine. There's plenty of people in that situation. Wish I was in that situation. But they can be very hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Because they've never been on the other side of the fence. All they know is they had a pretty nice truck in high school. They traded for a really nice truck in college. They got a brand new truck now. They didn't pay for any of them. Mm-hmm. And they're farming, X number of thousand acres, transitioning over as dad decides to spend more time in Florida. And by gosh, we're Billy Badass and we want it now.
Yep.
Yeah, newsflash, dude. Nobody cares.
Yep. I agree.
I agree. Not that people don't care, but you cop that attitude and then nobody cares. Yep. And I don't care if it's your deer dealer, your McDonald's server through the window, or the guy working the cash register at the Phillips 66.
Yep.
Like, you want to cop that attitude literally every time you come in. You probably ought to cook at home, have your gas delivered, and probably build your own farm machinery.
Yep.
Because at some point
I
in time,
agree.
people are to the point like, you know what, dude, it's not worth doing business with you.
No, I agree. You can ask anybody I do business with, the co-op, deer, how many times I've ever chewed any of their ass, and they're going to tell you a big fat zero. I've found out you catch more flies with honey.
That's exactly right. Like you can, I'm not saying I don't get upset from time to time, so on and so forth, but I generally try not to just light into people on some of that. Once in a while, you have to, for effect, if it's a repeat offense over and over and over and over and over, like, but I usually don't necessarily do it I've had a couple company reps that I have vented to pretty somewhat aggressively over certain situations, but so they can relay my frustrations up the chain, with a little more PC correctness or whatever, but I don't physically call the gal in shipping and just light into her
Yeah.
over the fact that this was packed half-assed or whatever
Yeah.
the situation is. You know,
I agree.
You know, but that's what those reps are there for, and they're used to it. But those are relationships that I've had for 10 years on some of those people, like, so they kind of know, and they've vented to me about other things. And so we have it's more of a friend relationship. Like, I could not eat your ass, but eat your ass right now
Yeah.
about something that happened.
Yeah.
You know, and you could relay it to your wife, say something that happened at school or the gas station, whatever, you know, or whatever. And you're going to relay it to your wife, and maybe she knows somebody that works in there and she kind of passes it on, as opposed to me just calling them and just lighting into them, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I look at it too, because I know how I can be. And if you're going to come into my business throwing a fit every time, it's like, I can't please this guy. So the next time you come in, your shit's just getting shuffled to the bottom of the pile every time, because it's like, I don't want to deal with it today.
Yeah,
so we're going to put you last.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like,
and I get it. Things happen. You know, we've had deals on tractors that they couldn't get figured out, and it happens.
And the other thing is, like, you never know what's going on in that person's life. Not making excuses for them, but I'm like, life happens.
Exactly.
And yeah, you still got to do your job, but sometimes it's hard to push through that, especially in the moment. Like in that fast food instance, like, that gal was 18. Not that that's an excuse. I don't even know if she was that old, to be honest with you. I'm like, her grandma could have died yesterday, and she's literally carrying food from the counter to the car, and she was doing a perfectly fine job of doing it. She was doing her job.
That's one thing I have
the
never...
fact that your food hadn't came up yet was not her fault.
Yeah.
I
agree.
She wasn't touching it. You know?
Very seldom will you ever hear me bitch about food in a restaurant. And I've had orders screwed up. You know, I wanted a bacon cheeseburger, it come with no bacon. I never say a word, and I still pay for the bacon, and I move on.
It happens. It just is
that's
what it is.
all you had to worry about while you were there.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, because I truly look at it that there's a lot of people that are going to go to bed tonight hungry, and I'm going to be thankful for the ones they brought me. And that's it. I'm not going to make a big deal.
My thing is, like, we're in a small enough community, even if we go to town, quote unquote, I'm going to eat there again within the next 2 weeks.
Right.
I just do not make my food servers mad.
Exactly.
Just seems like good practice.
Yeah.
You know, matter of fact, I prefer to overtip them and just, you know, so I don't get some sneezers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But not everybody sees it that way.
No, they don't. Like I say, if you would ask anybody on TikTok, they're going to think, oh, you know, he's full of shit or whatever. But I mean, you've been around me, Bible. I don't fly off the handle of people. You know, and once again, it might be you and I standing a lot. Well, you know, goddamn, so-and-so screwed this up or whatever. You know, I might vent to you or whatever over a beer or something.
I do plenty of that.
Yeah.
But that's just friends being friends. Like I said, it has no direct bearing on the situation.
But it's never been bad enough that I'm going up there tomorrow and just start chewing ass. I don't roll that way.
No. Like I said, you're not going to get any favors done in the long run. But those people always think that they're going to. It's like, I think what you're going to find is, at some point in time, you do that enough, people are like, you know what? Turns out we don't have to do business with them.
Well, especially like when you say when it's the young, spoiled rich kid that's had everything, it's like, bud, you ain't been on this earth long enough to come in here chewing my ass.
No, exactly.
You know, so you need to just calm down.
Yeah. For one, if it's that big a deal, let's go outside.
Yeah.
How big old boy are you?
Right.
You know, like, you know, it's that big a deal to you. You know, you want to get that wound up about it. All right, let's find out.
Yep.
You know, but I don't run into that in my personal situation really ever. I've got really good customers for the most part. This, that, and the other. You always get an outlier here and there, but you know, somebody's having a bad day, whatever. But the one thing that does piss me off, like, I'll get people that'll call and they'll be pretty shitty to the secretary. But then when you get them on the phone, well, then it ain't as big a deal. Now make up your mind. A minute ago, you were a badass. A minute ago, you were, you know, you were in the Cobra Kai and you were sweeping the leg. Mm-hmm. So which is it here, bud?
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
You're going to pick on the secretary who didn't even know the situation.
Yeah, she's answering the phone.
She's answering the phone.
Yep.
You know, like, you really want to go down that path?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because to me, now we've already started off on the wrong foot because you've done that shit. So
you want to get shitty? Turns out I got plenty of shit to do. Load your shit up and go home.
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Yep. Yeah, I just don't have any tolerance for that kind of shit. I get it. There's a time and a place for it.
Sometimes it has to be done. I get that. But when that becomes the norm, maybe you ought to cook at home. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it gains you much. I mean, it truly don't. Because you know damn good and well that if you was to go to John Deere, whatever. I'm just using examples of the industry I'm in, and act that way. You can't tell me the minute you walk out the door that everybody ain't like, fuck that guy. Everybody. That guys talk.
Absolutely.
It's not.
They're not mute on it. Yeah. And the next time you need something, they're like, Yep.
Yeah.
It's 5 till 5. We could make that hose for him, but we're not going to.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Or flip the sign real quick. We'll hop in our cars.
Yeah.
Deck with it.
I wouldn't do that if somebody comes in talking to me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Hell no.
I don't know. I was talking to a buddy of mine last night about some of that stuff. He runs a pretty good sized truck repair shop, and some of the stories he had were just mind boggling. Just mind boggling.
Yep. And that does roll different. Father, sons, brothers, everybody that farms together. You've always got disagreements there. That's
a different deal.
Right. I agree.
Yeah,
that's totally
a different deal.
Because you can't find. Yeah, I don't care who you are. I mean, I've seen it for years. We had a buddy that just lived up here north of the route. Him and his dad fought like cats and dogs. I mean, got along fine. When they weren't farming, they were great.
Yeah.
But they just always said, you can't work together.
Yeah.
But they still did. They always farmed together.
Yeah, they still did. But yeah, it was comical and very animated. But, yeah. No, I don't know. It's funny how different people view some of that.
And really, I got to think about this the other day. You've always got the so-called the bad guys in the neighborhood. So take around here. If you got a 6,000 acre farmer, we're just going to say, they always get a target on their back. They're an asshole. They're renting all the ground, buying all, this, that, and the other. And so they get shunned. But you can go 7 counties north and have a friend that's farming 7,000 acres, and he's the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
But up there, he's the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, hard to be a prophet in your own hometown. Too.
Yeah. So, I try to take people at face value. It's like, whatever, I mean, there's a lot of guys that rent a lot of ground around here. And I guess a lot of that I look at it as I probably wasn't going to rent it anyway. So what's it matter? I
mean, in general, people are great. Like a buddy of mine always tells me, the best part about being in business is the people. The worst part about being in business is the people.
Yeah.
Like, there's some give and take, and I understand some customer frustrations once in a while on some of that stuff. A lot of the times, like I have some of those same frustrations when I'm having things done, or buying this, or ordering that, or et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, being an asshole doesn't really get you very far on that.
No.
Sometimes it has to be done. Like I said, if it's a repeat offense.
I'm not going to say I've never done it because I have.
I mean, I have, but yeah.
But that's not my first go-to plan. Is just fly off the handle at this guy.
No, exactly. And it's funny to see how different people will treat different businesses based on their size.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, like I had a guy tell me one time that I could take my finance charge and shove it up my ass. Well, you're way past due on your bill. I'm like, if it was your credit card company, you'd pay it. Well, that's different. They're a big company. Yeah. So what difference does that make?
Yeah.
I'm like, Bank of America can afford to lose that little bit probably. Whereas, the fact that I'm essentially funding your operation for I don't know what reason, other than the fact that you refuse to open your mail or write a check or whatever it is, how's that make it my problem, really? Yeah. I mean, it became my problem, I guess.
Yeah.
But
it always makes you wonder, like, at what financial level do you have to get to where certain businesses cater to you from the fact of, like, I don't know, take some of these local businesses, and it'll be like the guy from the community that comes in has got all the money in the world. He gets a hell of a deal on it.
Yeah.
Kind of just because that's who he was.
Yeah.
But you and we just pay full price.
I just talked to another buddy about this the other day. He's like, it's funny, all these companies want these 10 big farmers. He's like, I'd rather have 30 small ones. He's like, the 10 big ones, well, by gosh, I spent, and not everybody's like this, so I don't want to sound like, I don't like any of these guys, because I do. But there's always the outliers that are assholes about things or whatever, and some of them have the attitude, well, I spent, $1 million here last year, so I ought to get it this way. Yeah, but you beat me down to 1% profit on every item you got, and you'll switch companies on over $5. So is it really worth catering to you that much when you have no loyalty?
It's sort of like dealing with Walmart. They're going to beat you down, and
they're going to beat you down, and they'll switch vendors in a heartbeat if somebody's 10 cents cheaper.
Yep.
Just 10 cents over all those products is a lot of money.
Yep.
So we're gone. So I don't know. I suppose it's give and take, and you just kind of got to push your way through it. But it's always interesting to sit back and watch. I always get a chuckle or find it intriguing to talk to my other friends that are in business, similar industries, different industries, doesn't matter. We all go through the same highs and lows of customer relations and this, that, and the other on different things. It's just interesting to hear their plight once in a while on certain things. Like,
do you see any different, like being in a business like yours or even the friends that you talk to? Is it a generational thing? Like, is the new generation, are they more cocky and more apt to chew your ass, or is it just anybody? I mean, it
kind of comes in waves, almost like trends, which is weird. Well, my buddy pointed out to me, and I don't run into this very often, but I could see where it probably is a thing. He was in the trucking, or he is in the trucking industry of truck repair. And his thing was like, he gets this pretty regular. Husband comes in, buys these parts. Wife's in charge of paying the bills, chews his ass. He's like, all I did was sell him the parts that he came into. He's like, I didn't send a salesman to his farm and try to sell him parts. Like, he walked in the door, said, I need this, this, and this. I sold them to him. He knew what they cost when he picked them up. He said, just put them on my account. I sent him a bill, and now you're eating my ass.
Yeah.
Take it up with your husband. Like,
right.
He's the one that came in and got the parts. I didn't force them on him. I didn't try to upsell him. I didn't go out there and say, well,
I was over here working on a truck, and he come in and said, I need this, and that.
I didn't try to sell him stuff that we were running on special that, that he didn't really need, that he's just stockpiling now because it was such a good deal. Like, he came in, needed this filter, that brake valve, and, a drum. I handed them to him. He took a copy of the ticket. He went home. Now you're mad at me over it? Like, how is that my fault?
Yeah.
I don't call the CEO of McDonald's and be like, well, I stopped by and bought a Big Mac, and now I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I don't know that I've ever chewed anybody's ass over the price of parts either. I mean, they may slide them across the counter. I'm like, holy shit, they don't give these things away. But I've never just ate their ass.
It's not the parts guy's fault. He ain't making up the price.
Exactly.
That was this guy's point. He's like, they came in and asked for this. And he's like, and I'm very competitive on prices. They asked for it. I handed it to them. They knew what it cost when they left. They took a copy of their receipt with them. They obviously didn't give it to their wife. Right. They got a bill in the mail a month later, 10 days, 30 days, whatever it was. Now the wife's mad. Well, that's a household issue. That has nothing to do with me.
I agree.
But he's like, I get that, 5 times a month, every month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I see where he's coming from. I don't run into that personally much, but I could see where it could happen.
Yeah, I could too.
I catch glimmers of it here and there, but nothing like he does. Right. But he's got a much larger business than I have. When they got 25 trucks in the shop at any given moment, they're doing way large scale deal than I am. But
yeah,
it's like, there again, that's not a shop issue.
Yeah.
That's a relationship, household. I didn't want to tell my wife that I just dropped $2,000 on shit for the semi.
Sure.
That I may or may not have needed.
Yep.
But that's not up to the parts guy.
No.
The parts guy can't be like, well.
I mean, you got to take your new tractor back to her and be like, well, my wife told me I couldn't have it. Hey, you bought it, buddy.
You really didn't need a chrome bumper. You could have got a painted one, and it wasn't even that shit. Like, it on this
stuff you need.
The instance I just talked to him about, it was like, it was a leveling valve, something for the brakes. Like, it was all wear items that literally put it out of service.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know what she wants me to do here. I'm like, yeah, I get that.
But it's always the guys, too, that the rules don't apply to them. Just like you was talking with your finance short, we'll just shove it up your ass. But I've been in your shop numerous times. All the signs are clear as mud on everything. The ticket that you hand somebody, it's on the ticket. You knew it was coming. I mean, I don't understand, but suddenly that don't apply to you. That's just everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, and I've got a ton of great customers. So I don't want this to sound like an anti-business rant, but maybe the next time before you chew ass, maybe look around a little bit.
Yeah.
Glass houses, stones, that whole thing.
Yep. I agree. I always said that when I worked at the co-op,
Oh my gosh.
Like spraying and shit, because you never knew where you was at. This farmer says, don't get close to the waterways. I don't want my waterways burnt. The next guy will get right up next to the waterway. I don't want weeds out in the field. And so you never knew where you was supposed to be. You've been in this thing for 26 days straight, you know, and it just, but you could tell the guys who would never, ever step foot in a sprayer and never will.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus the guys that you're like, well, wish you'd got that corn a little better, but it's all right. I mean, they just.
Next time when you do it, like get my corners built, how are you going to remember that for next year?
Well, that's just it. I've literally sprayed 10,000 acres on 45 different people. It's
exactly. Like, you got to be a little bit forgiving on some of that. I mean, not necessarily be a pushover on it, but like, there's easy ways to handle some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, generally, when it comes to spraying, I got wound up, and it's been a long time, and I'm talking to the tune of 12, 15 years ago, got wound up that, man, they had run over a bunch of corn. When I say a bunch, I'm talking a bunch. And it just got to where it's like, guys, this ain't going to work. And I never once chewed anybody's ass. It was just one of them deals that, hey, we're going to find something different, and we did. But still get along with that company that we was with, never chewed any ass, and would have done no good. The damage was done. What they going to do? Go out and
replant the corn? At that point in time, it's 2 foot tall.
Yeah. So.
No, I've been down that route.
And I get it. I've sat in a sprayer seat. Stuff happens. I mean, not making excuses, but it just wasn't what it was, and that was just the way we rolled.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're cultivating, Tony, and the sun's coming through the window, you get tired.
Yeah, that's right.
Air conditioning's not the best thing for a cultivating tractor. Like, sometimes you just get sleepy.
That's right.
Then lightning hits, the next thing you know, you got some corn gone.
I tell you what, there's a lot. I mean, I like a lot of this new machinery. I'm not like dead set, like absolutely have to have it. I mean, it's nice to run, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, there's a lot of days, and we've talked, that now going back to like open station tractors, it's like, that does kind of suck, but I don't know. I do. The older I get, the more I wish it was more the 80s. Everybody farmed 500 acres with older stuff.
Yeah.
It was such a tight-knit community.
And you got to be out there forever.
Yeah.
Like, now it's like, 2 weeks in the spring, 4 weeks in the fall.
That's it.
Back to the shop.
Yep. Back then, it was such a tight-knit community because you was farming on this side of the road, the neighbors over here.
You're out there all day.
Yeah, and it finally got to the point where somewhere coming across there, you guys both got lined up and it was on the end at the same time, so you stop, hoping, you're kind of kicking around, hoping he'll stop. Up, sure enough, he does. So then you go shoot the shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just a lot tighter-knit community. And now it's like, hell, I don't even know who this guy is from across the road. He's from 40 miles away, and he's in and out.
No idea who he is. And it's just a hired man anyway, and I have no idea who he is for sure. And
yeah, that truly was fun farming back then, and I still enjoy it. I mean, I do, but I do think it was funner.
It was different then.
Back then. I know something about them fall nights, and that older stuff. I mean, it sounded cool. The motors sounded cool. I mean, it was...
and I think that's why it's so easy for this next generation to be like, well, I don't want to farm. I'm going to sell the ground off as soon as the old man dies. Because we were tied to it a lot more. Like, until you've been out on a fall night in a Carhartt coat, freezing your ass off on an open station tractor, chisel plowing, literally 2 foot narrower than the tractor.
Yeah.
So you're like, 40 acres? Okay. 5 hours later, I might be done. Hopefully somebody comes pick me up because I don't have a cell phone to call anybody.
Yeah.
So I hope somebody comes and gets me.
Yep.
I told them about 5 hours or 4 hours, whatever your time frame is going to be. Hopefully somebody comes and gets me. Otherwise, I guess I'll go to another field and keep going.
Yep.
After I swing in and get fuel because it holds, 4 hours worth of fuel.
Yep.
And
I love cell phones. Never leave home without it. But God, that was nice back then. Like you said, you didn't. I mean, nobody bothered you. Once you hit the field, you were there. And it was just you and whatever you were doing. Yeah, it was fun farming back then. For you younger guys,
I want to go back to bag phones.
Yeah, exactly. You got one if you need it.
Yeah, got one if you need it.
And that's it.
But you're not scrolling through social media on that, and you're gonna find a place to plug it in.
Right.
Yeah.
And it truly does hit different as far as like if I get on my 4010 or something, the auto steer connection don't even click.
No.
You know what I mean? But you put me in a newer front wheel assist tractor, and it's like, I got to have auto steer. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that is. Because, we ran Magnums, all that shit years ago that never had it. But it's just something about when you get in the cab now, it's like it's ingrained in you that this thing has to have auto steer.
Yeah. Where's the button? What do I push?
But if you jump on the old one, it's like, well, hell, I can do this.
Yeah. Just cruise it back and forth. Yeah.
Now, I got a ton. And I mean a ton.
Did you do any videos? There was a trend there a while back on your top 5 most or best tractors that you love?
No, I didn't.
Top 5's worst.
Yeah.
I thought about it 1,000 times, but I'm always in the middle of shit.
I don't know if I could pick 5. You know what I mean? It'd be tough.
You know what? I'd have to think top 5 that I want to own, top 5 that I did own, top 5 that I want to use.
The top 5 that you want to own would probably be pretty cool, you know.
Yeah. I want 4 7488s and a 72.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But that's not realistic. So,
yeah.
And I never used any of those, never been in one. I mean,
and like you say, you do get to the practical side of it. It's like, yeah, I'd like to own one of them, but I'd never have any use for it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, and some of that's like, okay, if I had one, I wouldn't use it because I don't want to tear it up because there's not very many. So, you know.
I know as far as me, the unlimited money, if I was the Whistling Diesel side of unlimited money, I want the old Steiger green a new tractor painted the old Steiger green.
Yeah, that ain't no kidding.
Them things look neat.
They do look nice. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But yeah, I'd have to go through them.
I'd have to think about it. Honestly, I'd have to do it generationally. Like, top 5 that I want from the 70s, top 5 that I want from the 80s, top 5 from the like. Truthfully, because some of that doesn't bleed over. Like, I'm not going to trade my 305.
Yeah.
For a 5288. Well, I loved my 5288. I spent a ton of time in that thing. They did a great job for me. But I'm not trading even up.
And
for
truthfully,
that. I don't want to go back to that necessarily, but I did love the tractor. If
you get past an 8300 or an 8000 series Deere up to now, it's like they're pretty much all the same.
It's a more refined version of its previous self.
Yeah, nothing really changed. The overall control, there's just a few more buttons in it. You know, it wasn't like a 1466 to a 1086.
I got a buddy that heckles me all the time because I'm always driving my old 7.3. He's like, won't you ever drive your 6.7? I'm like, why? He's like, well, because it's nicer. I'm like, well, it is nicer. But I'm not going to a formal dinner. There's no red carpet when I get there.
Yeah.
The old 7.3 fits me. That seat is firmly fashioned in my bottom. Like it.
Yep.
I'm just used to it. I like it.
Yep.
Gets me where I want to go. I'll drive the good truck occasionally.
Sure.
But otherwise, I'll just take the 7.3. It's fine. She's always taking care of me. That'll be fine. Like, I don't need all that. I didn't need navigation to get over here. I knew where I was going.
Exactly.
I don't have to have that shit for my normal day-to-day stuff.
I agree.
Like, I wasn't going to Bluetooth anything. I wasn't going to connect to this, that, and the other. I was going to drive the 2 miles. By the time I got all that shit set up, I was already going to be here.
Yeah.
So I didn't need any of that.
Yep.
You know, so I'll just take the old school ride for that.
Yep.
You know. Plus
and like farm tractors nowadays, they change rapidly, don't get me wrong, but the overall interior of the cab doesn't change drastic. You know, when you went from a 1466 with a cab on it to a 1086, it's like, this thing's totally different.
Yeah.
Where nowadays, like they just had a few more buttons and this monitor. The functionality of the tractor didn't change, or the interior per se.
Some widgets here and there, and that's my other beef though. Like, what percentage of that shit do you think actually gets used?
Oh yeah, virtually none.
I mean, and I don't care if you're talking a Ford Platinum or a Denali for Chevy guys or whatever their fancy model is these days, or the premium John Deere cab that's sitting there. Like, some of those features you're never going to use for what you use that tractor for. There's $20,000 worth of shit in that tractor that you're never going to use.
Prime example, on a newer vehicle, have you ever went by the 54% oil life remaining? I mean, do you go by that? No, most people go by mileage.
I got in an argument with a shop guy the other day. He thought that was actually sampling the oil and knew that the oil was 54% from that. I'm like, it's just a mileage counter, essentially. Oh, it is not. It knows. I'm like, it doesn't know shit. No. It's just counting down. Yeah. I can reset it to 100% tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. That thing could be 100% every day if I want to set it to that. Oh, you cannot. I'm like, remind me to not have you change my oil.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, I don't go by that because I always run AMSOIL, so I don't run off the same interval the dealership does.
I've always had mine changed in town just because they do it cheap enough. It's just way easier, and so it's always just like it's been for 50 years in the corner of the windshield. Yeah. This mileage change it. You look at the odometer, okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I love that shit. It makes me mad because it's just more shit to scroll through. It's like I'm actually trying to get to this feature, but I got to scroll through these 9 fucking things that I don't need or don't use. Get them off there. I mean,
have you ever set your tractor up where you hit one button, it downshifts twice, raises the implement, you turn it, you hit the button again, it turns the nav back on, drops the implement, shifts back
never
up.
Could get any of that shit to do.
I can get it to work, but I can't get it to time out the way I want it to time out.
Really?
It doesn't react. I won't even say it doesn't react the way I want it to. it probably reacts exactly like I program it, but you're not necessarily doing it in the exact same order.
Right.
Or you're doing it in the same order, but you're not doing it the exact same way every time. I'm like, hit the button. Oh, it's not happening fast enough.
That's
I
right.
should have had, it should be up by now or whatever. Like it's never exactly the way I want it. And I'm like, and then I get to thinking about it. I'm like, am I too lazy to click the switch?
Yeah. Instead of hitting 3 buttons, we're only hitting 1.
Turn the wheel and turn it back and hit the nav button and drop the implement. Like, I think I can pull that off. Yeah. Like, if I get any less shit to do in here, I'll be asleep.
Yeah.
I'll just click the switches and push the buttons myself. I have to do something at some point.
I've had guys
played with it just to try it, but
I've had guys at Deere tell me you would not believe the amount of guys that would call in that are planting my auto steer. It ain't working. They're like, well, it's going to be 3 hours before we can get there. Just use your markers. Oh, I mean, they wouldn't even consider it. I mean,
I had a tech
and I'm
tell
talking
me one
like
time.
60-year-old guys,
I had a tech tell me one time, and he's kind of brash a little when he needs to be, but he had a grower call him one time, and the guy was just doing tillage, so it wasn't an emergency. His auto steer quit. He knew what he's going to do. Just done. It was fall tillage, so it wasn't. Not that fall tillage doesn't matter, but it's like, if you overlap 6 inches or didn't overlap 6 inches, it's probably not going to break the bank.
right?
The guy tells him, he's like, I can help you. I can't get there for a few hours, but I got a solution in the meantime. Oh, yeah, what's that? What do I got to do? He's like, if you'll look down, there's a 3-spoked black item in front of you. If you'll put your left hand on that and turn that back and forth, you can guide that tractor on its own, totally under your control. The guy didn't even get his sarcasm, totally mind blown.
Yeah.
Just
He's peeling up the floor mat looking for this.
Yeah, he's like, oh my God, I just didn't know what to do. It's like, just grab the steering wheel. You can drive it. Can you drive it for 3 hours till I get there? The guy just didn't know how he would.
Yeah.
It's like, and it wasn't like he was inline ripping where,
Sure.
a little waste is a lot of waste. Like he was just disking or something, whatever. It's like, probably just drive that. He wasn't strip tilling to where it's got to be, badass so he can plan over it the next year and he's doing all this stuff. Like he's just out there recreationally disking, basically.
Yep.
Corn stalks in the fall. Probably not going to matter one way or the other.
Right.
His neighbor's no-till. You're disking. Maybe skip 50 foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Try a strip.
Yeah.
See how it works out. He's like, just grab that black thing in front of you with the 3 spokes and turn it back and forth. The tractor will follow that. The guy was just mind-boggled by it.
I've thought about for this spring, and I'll let the cat out of the bag here because I may not do it. I've thought about making a TikTok like when we start planting and be like, did you guys know that if you set your auto steer on a planter 3 inches narrower, by the time you get across the field, you can squeeze an extra 9 rows in, which equates to, an additional 150 bushel, which brings the entire field average up by, 8 bushel.
You're probably right. But that's the app I want. I want to plant around my field, and I want it to adjust my point rows.
Right. So there is none.
So there are no point rows. I want it to adjust my bulk rows, I guess. So there are no point rows.
Yeah.
But I don't know that anybody does that.
Yeah, I don't know. But like say, if it was only 2 inches or whatever all the way across.
It might only be a quarter of an inch or a half. Yeah. You're not going to know that. That's fine. You squeeze it off, and then I don't have a 3-foot strip when I get done or a double row. Whatever.
Yep.
Is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, it is.
But that would actually be something practical and useful instead.
Well, yeah, you got to have draft control.
Instead we got to have draft control on my tractor that I want to move hay bales with.
Yeah.
Because heaven forbid that my 100-horse loader tractor doesn't have draft control to the low price of $20,000 for the electric bullshit that keeps the 3-point from working when all I want to do is pick up a freaking round bale and drop it off, 2 miles away. No, we got to have draft control.
Well, I'll tell you a good one. This is going to work out great. So Deere was telling me that there are new loader tractors coming out. They've got controllers on them now just for the loader.
Oh, that's will work out good.
So when I pull into the rock pile and scoop up a load of rock, and then I'm going to drive 2 miles down the road and put it in this creek crossing, that once I take off and the tractor gets to bouncing and go down the road, that it's automatically going to adjust the bucket, 4.5, so you don't spill any rock, but get the right load, so it's not bouncing. But, this is going to be great when you get them buried in manure and everything else like a loader tractor.
That just goes back to my previous statements on the other podcast. That shit you do when you have
it's first world problem.
The illusion of too much money and first world problems. Like,
exactly.
Just pick the shit up. You know what would help me out more than that? 3 more gallon of hydraulic pump.
Yeah.
And actually lift what it's supposed to lift.
Yep.
Just give me that. I don't need any of that shit. I'll run the control myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this ought to be a hoot.
Yeah. Just stupid. That's just engineers sitting around like, goddamn, we don't come up with something, they're going to cancel our job. Like, we'll invent some shit and we'll build a couple problems into it. Then we'll get to come up with a solution for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Truthfully, where is it going to end? That you can't even run your own loader now that you got to have it do it for you. I mean, it just baffles me. And every year you think, okay, we got to be about to the end of this. We can't think of anything more.
But wait, there's more.
That's right. Gosh. Like prescription tillage, not saying there's not something to that. I don't know. I've never ran it, but seriously, I mean,
why don't we focus our efforts on something that actually makes sense, though? Like, I realize they don't want you to do any of your service work, but it's still a pain in the ass for the techs of the dealer. Like, I don't know. How about make some filters half-ass easy to get on and off? How about we just outlaw canister filters altogether? Because they weren't worth a shit in the 60s. And they haven't gotten any better. I realize we're bringing them back because they're more environmentally friendly. We can shit can those. It can all be spin-ons. There's nothing that pisses you off more than you put this canister filter in, and now it leaks. This, that, shit can that. Put them all in a nice location where they're easy to change, so on and so forth. How about we focus our efforts on that? How about I spend $500,000 on a tractor, and when I pop the hood, I can actually get to something.
Yeah.
That'd be nifty.
Yep.
Every pulling tractor in the U.S., you hit a button, the hood goes up. But not your $500,000 farm tractor. You pop this latch that may or may not be broke.
Yep. Now you call 4 buddies to help you push the hood.
Yeah, because the cylinders went bad. Because some jackass used these nitrogen-filled cylinders that they weren't worth the shit on the doors in the 80s, but now we're still trying to use them on hoods, and you got to replace them all the time. And you angle the hood up, and you can almost get to the radiator.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of, not really.
Damn sure can't dump nothing in it.
No. How about I hit a button, and the whole thing goes straight up, completely the hell out of my way. My old pulling tractor, I could take the head off of it, pull the motor out of it, never took the hood off.
Yep.
All out of your way. Cost me like $400.
Yeah.
On a $500,000 tractor,
what's $400?
Not that big a deal.
Right.
You know, the shocks that I'm going to put on this other piece of shit are going to cost me more than that over the course of time, and I still can't get to anything.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe this farmer's not keeping the radiator blown out. That's because he can't get the hood open and it doesn't work. You know, you can't get to it once he does get it open.
Yep. You and I had this conversation the other night. 8,000 series Deere tractor, batteries down there, you know, right in front of the windshield. Got this real nice magnetic cover to pull.
It's a great cover.
Yep. Pull it right off. Can't get to the batteries.
Yep,
and
can't
then
touch the batteries.
Now the genius engineer, we've got the battery cables designed so they run right over the top of all your battery holes. That way, if you want to check the water in and put water in, got to completely disassemble the battery. You know, we couldn't have made them have a 1/4 inch or more offset to get them off the cover.
Well, Tony, what I learned on TikTok last night was if you have strong boxes, you're never putting batteries in it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You're good to go for life. Those are lifetime batteries.
If Tesla would just start putting strong boxes in their car.
strong boxes, then they could drive forever.
Yeah.
California to New York.
Yeah.
No charge. Good to go. You're good to go with strong boxes. That's what I've learned.
Yep.
But shit like that just infuriates you. Like, if you're going to spend the money on having engineers come up with shit that we don't really need, have them solve actual problems, you know? But no, I digress. We haven't looked into any of that. But I'm a little bitter because I recently worked on a Ford.
Ford
tractor.
Oh, you and I had this conversation too. How can a company that made such great automotive products have such a shit line of farm equipment as far as the ones...
No offense to the Europeans, but I think they hired the British to do this one. And
oh, my
wowzers.
God.
Holy shit, is that thing a bag of shit.
Yeah.
I told you that day in the shop, if I'd have worked on this thing before I bought my first truck, I'd be driving a Dodge or a Chevy.
Yeah.
That's how much I think that thing's a pile of shit. And I would say no offense to the Ford guys, but some offense to the Ford guys. Like, those things suck. And that thing is an epic pile of shit. I've never been a blue tractor guy, and I damn sure am not now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they brought nothing to the table. Like, there was that whole tractor, that should be called the Afterthought series, because there was no plan.
And this wasn't a newer Ford. This is
the TW35.
Yeah.
And I know there's going to be flamers on here that tell me what the great features are on that. I've yet to find it, other than I did point one good feature out to a guy today that was in the shop. The outside door handle is above average for an 80's tractor.
Really?
The outside door handle is not terrible.
Yep.
It's probably above average. That's the only redeeming quality I could find to it, because I was trying to find something positive, because you know me, Tony, I'm a positive person.
Sure. I was there.
That's the only thing I could find.
The day you was getting ready to take the motor out, and you had to take the entire front end off the tractor. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking front wheels, fuel. I mean,
all
not
gone. Yeah.
not like take. I mean, literally, like split the tractor.
If you blow a steering hose on that thing, near as I can tell, you'd be down for a couple of days. Like, you can't get to it. If you want to take the hydraulic filter off that runs off the camshaft, which is quite possibly the stupidest thing I've ever seen, you got to loosen some brackets and get some shit. You shouldn't have to loosen shit other than the filter to replace the filter.
Yeah.
If you can't get the filter to a normal location,
Yeah.
then I guess don't even filter it. Like, if that's where we're at. Wow.
We was even looking at the front weights. I mean,
Yeah, even that's a job.
what a job!
Yeah.
Because they were angled to fit in the front rails.
You
Weren't
got
they?
to pull the front piece out between the frame rails and then slide them in the frame rails and then bolt that piece back in. Yeah. Looks super handy. Nobody's going to steal your weights. Nobody ever got up to their FW or TW35 and said, son of a bitch, the meth head stole my front weights last night. Nope, they're driving past the Ford like, scrap ain't that high. We ain't worrying about that. We'll find a guy with an 8,000 deer or a 1066. The hell with this, you know. His weights were perfectly fine. At that point in time, like, we'll just haul this whole tractor off. We'll be doing that guy a favor. We'll make money, and we'll be doing him a favor.
Right. But, it's funny, like them TW Fords and even the older 9600s or whatever series that was and whatnot, you didn't see that many of them around here. The Genesis, you did.
There's a lot of Genesis. Yeah, they kind of fill a niche in there with the super queer front axle that turned short for about 30 minutes till, it got wore out and the 8000 series deer came out and the MX came out and then they kind of got obsoleted fast. But there was a lot of Genesis. There's still a fair amount of Genesis around here.
Yeah, there is.
But there was hardly any Fords. I wish there was a few less.
Yeah, we got a niche area here just east of us that was, well, I mean, a lot of them guys might have ran like older 1066s and stuff maybe back in the day, but there's a kind of an area there that's, boy, it's a lot of Ford, versatile, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not the John Deere case, country.
No, a lot of livestock guys, and I suppose they needed a ton of tractors, and they needed a ton of cheap tractors because they need one on a mixer and need one on a grinder and need one on a shit spreader and so on and so forth. So they're just looking for cheap wheeled power.
Yeah, they didn't give a shit about the comfort.
And they needed a dealer close, and they had a couple dealers close that had that stuff. So
they did.
They didn't really necessarily care what it was. They just need something that allegedly would start and go.
Yep. And it's sort of like the 8-in Ford. Everybody raves about them. Them didn't do shit for me.
No. Nope. If you gave me one right now and said, Nick, you got to keep this for 20 years or you got to keep it for your whole life, I'm not going back and looking for a trailer. No. I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm all good there.
They sold a pile of them things, but
they did.
I suppose if you had a horse,
I love Henry Ford more than most people, but yeah, they just stayed out of the ag market.
Yeah. That's weird how they could make such good pickup trucks. Even I'm not gonna say semi, but tandem trucks.
Yeah.
A lot of guys had them for dump trucks and stuff. They're good for that.
Yeah.
Different stuff. But man, when it comes to tractors. At least that TW series. I don't know about the Genesis. I've never ran one. Shit like that.
They still don't have sleeves. If you smoke a piston, you got to bore the block. Well, that's super handy. Yeah. I'm not too thrilled about any of that.
Yeah.
I'm all good there.
I don't know. God, what do you think of these grain markets? Man, what a bloodbath. Thank God it held off till March. We at least got through the February insurance average.
And thank God I bought all my inputs at the high.
Yeah.
They've come down some now. That's great.
Yeah.
Now the grain markets are crashing.
I sold one load of new crop beans for this fall for $13.50, and I wish I would have sold a hell of a lot more looking at it now, but who knows?
And I tell myself I knew better, but I didn't do it anyway. You know, doing the math, and it's like, well, I really need more than that. And they may come back, who knows, but
yeah,
if I knew that, I wouldn't have to farm, I guess. But
I've always wondered, why is ag the only industry? So let's just take Exxon. Let's just pick one of the big ones. And I'm not knocking big oil. I don't want to walk. I like gasoline, but for years, them guys have bought up leases, all this shit, won't drill. Anytime production gets, oil starts getting cheap, well, just start shutting rigs off, and get the price back up. And agriculture.
You can't get two farmers to agree.
No, agriculture is one industry that has never done that. They just keep overproducing.
My dad has told me since I was a little kid, the best thing farmers could do is buy everything on the board with the input money that they'd normally spend on a crop and then don't plant a thing.
Yep. And he's right.
Force a shortage. You'd have to burn a few neighbors out because there'd be some bitch out there trying to plant.
Yep.
And you could solve it in 1 year.
Yep.
But instead, we buy retail, we sell wholesale, we pay the truck in both ways.
Yep.
That's just where we're at. And I suppose it's always been that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Virtually every other industry does it.
Every other industry says, well, this is our bottom line. If oil gets below this, we can't turn a profit. So we'll start shutting shit off to make sure oil doesn't get below this, There, it did get negative there for the first time in history.
Yeah,
there,
COVID,
a year ago, 2 years ago, and those guys all panicked to shit. But what that last a day,
Yeah,
2 days,
it wasn't very
it wasn't
long.
nothing. You know,
No.
whereas I can prove to you on paper that you can be in the negative in farming on this 20 or 60-cent swing we're on right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, pretty easily.
Yep. Yeah, and I still do not know how these guys with paying the monster cash rent. That truly is a biggest dick contest, is all that is. Because
Every time one goes down, another one shows up. You know,
Yep.
They're like
Because-
whack-a-mole.
And I do not buy the fact that they're buying their inputs cheaper. They're not buying them that much cheaper. Not saying they're not getting some kind of a discount, but
They are getting a discount in some fashion, but still not enough to make that pencil.
no, not when you're talking $300 to $400.
They're averaging it out over the other ground. Well, yeah, maybe, but that doesn't necessarily make sense either. Like,
To me, it wouldn't.
you're dragging your other shit down. I mean, I guess your overall net is higher, but you're doing a shitload more work. Like,
Yeah, wearing out equipment, hiring employees.
Yeah.
You know,
if you can sell a $100 product that you got 50 in, or you can sell a $200 product that you've got 75 in, which would you rather do? You know, I don't know, whatever.
I guess to me, when you're looking at averaging it across, well, I'm just running the averages, and to me, that comes back to the biggest dick contest. And you're just wanting to say that you farm 8,000 acres. I would rather take the 1,000 acres and make damn good money, and just not have to work near as hard and not wear my machinery out over 5 years, and ride off into the sunset. Because, I mean, if you look at some of the guys around here, they have to farm 5,000 acres with the infrastructure that they've built now and the machinery that they've got.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do with a 3 million bushel grain leg and you're farming 500 acres?
Exactly.
So,
Move it really fast.
yeah, I mean, they backed themselves in a corner almost.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't roll that way. I have no desire to farm half the county. I just don't. I don't.
No. Well, a lot of those guys' motto is they don't want to farm everything, just what touches them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, perpetually never ends.
Right.
But, yeah. Like I said, I'm not knocking
No,
big farmers necessarily. But,
no, it ain't nothing to me. I don't
But,
care.
yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
I just don't understand it. But you're right. You couldn't get two farmers to agree on what color the walls of this room are.
Nope.
And for those of you listening, they're bright white. So they just.
That's not true. That one's green.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, can't get two guys to agree.
Yep.
The one I'm looking at's green. The one Tony's looking at's white.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a shit storm. And that's what, if there's ever a business that needed a union, it's farming.
Yeah. I mean, man, when I was a kid in the 80s, if you just said so-and-so is going to drive 25 miles to farm that, I mean, they'd have laughed him out of the community. Who in the hell is going to drive 25 miles? And now it's nothing to drive 50.
It's nothing. By the same token, when we were kids, if you said you're going to Effingham, that was a big deal.
Sure.
There's people who go do that 3 times a day from here now.
Yeah, there is.
On a whim. They don't even necessarily work there.
No.
I might drive there for lunch tomorrow. Probably will. But when I was a kid.
Yeah, and that's only 20 miles away, and it's 10 from your house.
If mom was going to town, well, that was a big deal. That was once a week at most.
Yep.
Like, I suppose the world gets smaller as stuff gets bigger and faster and allegedly more efficient. Once I get this electric car, hell, I may just drive back and forth all day.
Exactly.
Charge it in one town, drive back to the next, charge it there, drive back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know how many trips I can make on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably one.
Yeah. Yeah, it just moves so damn fast nowadays that I don't know. I don't see where ag will ever have a big reset like some other industries or whatever. I just don't see how it could ever happen.
I don't think everybody talks, well, I'm just going to wait for it to get cheap. I don't think that'll ever happen.
We done that at 7,000, waiting for it to go back to 3, and 3 was too high, and it went to 15 to 20. So
I don't think there's too many players in the game now. Investors. You're not competing against your neighbor farmer that also helped out little old lady Wilson. You took her to the doctor half the time. He took her to the doctor half the time. You're not competing against them. Now you're competing against big land groups. You're competing against people that are buying it for an investment. They've got a town job and they saved well and they want to invest in something else. Now you're competing against all that.
Well,
so it's very hard for it to get cheap.
Like in our generation where the baby boomers are still on the back end of it now. Like my kids won't have to, the baby boomers will be gone by then. But, you take a baby boomer that his mom and dad had bought 300 acres. So then once the baby boomer took over, he leveraged it and bought another 300, got in all that at the right time.
Yeah.
And, and now maybe he's renting a little more, but nonetheless, he owns 500 acres free and clear. Maybe he rents another couple, 300. Well, you and I can't compete with that guy. I mean, and that's very, very small scale. I mean, we're talking.
All his shit got paid for in the early 90s.
Yeah. All of his machinery's paid for,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's very small scale. I mean, we got guys around here that own several thousand acres.
Yeah.
I mean, how the hell you ever going to, once you get that snowball rolling, there's no stopping it. I mean,
no, it's tough to compete with that.
Our break even is this, and theirs is substantially lower because everything they got's paid for. I mean, time's just not our friend,
No, timing has a lot to do with business.
And
business
essentially,
success.
which my situation is different, but even as far as a lot of people our age, we didn't get in it when we were 18 years old.
No.
A lot of guys our age, it was about 30 to 40 years old before they finally, and I'm talking enough ground to make it worth. I'm not saying they didn't farm 80 acres that their dad let them, but I'm talking a few hundred acres where you was actually in the game now.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the boomers, they were all 18, 20 years old.
Because farming sucked then, so their dads all quit at
Right.
65. They were counting the days to their 65th birthday.
Yep.
Now it's auto steer this, air conditioned that.
Yep.
They're like, I can keep doing this.
Yeah,
for another
and
10
commodity
years.
prices were good,
No, I'll keep doing it,
Yep.
So it's tough. And how many guys back in the day, well, I could buy this 80. Okay. And 7 years later, I could buy another 80.
Yep.
7 years after that, I could buy another 80. The numbers weren't as high. You could work a town job, work a little overtime, get it paid for, build it up. Your risk was it was still risky, but, well, worst case, I got to get another town job, and then I can for sure pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, now you can't get enough town jobs to pay for 80 acres.
No. Yeah, at least back
it's $1
then.
million now,
Yeah, at least back then, most of the time, if you had somewhat of a down payment, I'm not talking a huge down payment, the ground would at least pay for itself once you put the down payment on it. Then it's like, well, it's floating its own.
Yeah.
I mean, that ain't anywhere close to the truth now.
I mean, it's probably more our grandparents' generation than our parents' generation. But there were several of those guys that bought a few farms here and there. They didn't even farm them.
Right.
They rented them out to somebody else because, well, shit, 400 acres is enough for me. I don't want to work that hard. I kind of always wanted this farm, but it's a little bit too far away to go. So I'll just rent it to Bob. He couldn't swing it. I'll just buy it and rent it to him, and never even touch it, or whatever. Well, you ain't about to do that now.
Yeah. And hindsight's always 20/20. Guys like you and I can say, well, if I'd have just been born 35 years early, I'd own 3,000 acres now. Well, nobody around here. I mean, there's some people that do, but the vast majority don't own that much, and there's a reason why. I mean,
yeah. Well, you're always adverse to risk. Knowing what I know now, I'd have borrowed every dime I could have found anybody to loan me when I was 18.
Yeah.
I'd have borrowed it all.
If you'd have bought 2,000 acres and lost half of it and still had 1,000 freaking clear.
Yeah, you'd have been good.
Yeah.
If you could have hung on to it long enough to sell it again at a profit, it'd have paid for the other 1,000. You'd be good to go. I could buy 2,000 now.
Yeah.
Or 5 years ago.
Yep.
With that leverage. But by the flip side, there's guys that got bought, and this is what our parents' generation, and I get it, it's true. Well, those guys in the 70s, they started rolling in the 80s hit, and they lost it all, which kept the guys that were somewhat conservative, like my dad, from overextending themselves in the late 80s, early 90s, because they could still remember that. But the guys that were like, caution to the wind, they grew a lot in that time.
Yeah,
frame,
they did.
Because it was, I remember being at the bar talking about, so I had to be 21, talking about there was a farm was going to sell for $3,000 an acre. That's what the guy wanted, $3,000 or $35,000. And everybody's laughing him out of town.
And it was good ground.
To the point that he said to hell with it, bought his sisters out of it and kept it because he was retiring from farming. That's what they wanted for it. Nobody'd give him that for it. He kept it. Shit, it wasn't 2 years later. He was getting half that a year in rent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not half, but a lot.
Yeah.
And he looks like a rock star now.
Yep.
On that deal. It didn't take long for it to escalate there. And when was the last time you could buy ground for $3,000 an acre?
And like I say, that was good ground.
Yeah.
Real good.
That was flat and black. Yeah.
Yeah.
With some high-powered neighbors.
Yeah, right.
That wouldn't give that for it. But 2 years later than that, they'd give $5 for it if he'd have let it go.
Exactly. Yeah, you've always got the generation that holds the other one back, because prior to that, like our grandpas, their dads held them back because they come through the Depression, and, you're going to lose it,
And they just barely bought enough to get by, just enough so we could eat, So, which, like I said, I wouldn't want to set on an M or a 560 any longer than I'd had to.
No.
I suppose. So I suppose that's why they were doing it that way. But
yeah, I just don't know where it's going to go now. I mean, it's getting to the point now. It's the entire reason why our ancestors fled Europe, because it got to where the only people that had anything was rich people. And I mean, you're rapidly approaching that here.
Yeah, it's getting that way fast.
And I don't know what the answer is to that. I mean,
do you reset it and say only people that actively farm can own farm ground? Like,
right. How do you do that?
I mean, how do you do it? But is that what needs to be done? I'm not saying it is. I'm just devil's advocating it now. But like, you got Bill Gates owns what?
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands of acres at this point. Do you think he's even walked on what? Yeah. Half of 1% of that?
Right.
Do you think he's even touched half of 1% of that?
Right.
No. Somebody's farming it, I assume.
Yep. And
for now.
And then you always get the loopholes. Bill Gates, okay, fine, I own 200,000 acres. And let's just say he owns 1,000 acres of farmland. Okay, so this 20 acres over here, we're going to 50-50 that. Mm-hmm. So I can be an active farmer. The rest I'm going to cash rent it to you. So now I can just keep buying. How do you physically have to own a tractor and actually do the work? I mean, how do you police it?
Yeah, exactly. It's impossible to police.
Yeah. And that's where I've always been, and we probably talked about this in the past, I've always been torn on the inheritance tax. I believe when you buy it, it's yours. You should be able to keep it. But you do see why that's in effect.
Yeah.
Which, granted, once you get so big, then you got the lawyers and the ways to get through the loopholes to get around it anyway. And clearly it hasn't worked like it should, because we're in this situation now.
Yeah.
But I do see what the intent was there, that eventually you got to bust some of it up, or that's all that owns land,
Yeah, exactly. It's a double-edged sword there again, too, which apparently is my key phrase for the podcast today. I've said it about 6 times now. But yeah, I don't know what the right answer is in that. And that's part of the negative to farm equipment continuing to get bigger and more autonomous. Like, it makes it that much easier for one guy to farm the entire world.
I think we're getting ready to see the next leg higher. When we were kids, a big farmer farmed 3,000 acres. Now a big farmer's 7,000 or 8,000. But once the autonomous comes online, they're going to go to 12.
You remember when we were kids, if a guy had a stagger.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you might as well call him John Holmes. Man, that guy was, he was huge.
Yep. And he might have only farmed 700 acres.
Yeah. Yeah. But if he had a stagger, and it could be a shitty one with a 3208 in it, that really wasn't that big in a grand scheme. It didn't have any more power than a 1486 or whatever else, But if he had a stagger, bend in the middle, holy crikeys.
Yeah.
That's, wow.
Yep.
That guy is cutting a fat hog in the ass,
Yep.
Like, that was a big deal, because at that point in time, like, Deere's 4-wheel drives weren't great. I can't think anybody had a big IH 4-wheel drive back when they were new.
Right.
Not in our immediate area.
No.
I'm talking 5 miles in a circle.
Same with the Deere. Like, nobody had the old 8440. They had like the 8870s and on up from there once things got rolling. But nobody had.
But they didn't have them when they were new.
No,
not in our immediate area. No. They had them later on. But it's like, oh man, that guy's got a 4-wheel drive. Woo. Look at that guy go. You know. And like I said, it was probably cheaper than the neighbor's 4640.
Sure.
But he could use it for more things. Mm-hmm. Front wheel assists weren't taking over the world yet. So yeah, it's funny to sit back and reminisce over it now. Hindsight's always better than foresight.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to shake out, but it's definitely going to get interesting, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. I try not to get too far down the rabbit hole of the sky is falling. Otherwise, next thing you know, I'm digging a hole in the ground, I'm building a bunker, and
and that's just it.
I'm stockpiling. Then and that's not cost effective. So.
You get too scared to ever take any kind of a risk then. Yeah. And I mean, you got to take somewhat of a risk in life. I'm not saying leverage yourself to the hilt, but I mean.
No. My advice, and I'm not saying it's good advice, would just be cover your debt with life insurance. If something happens, you don't screw your wife over, because that's the last person you want to hang out to dry. Like, you married her for a reason. Yeah. So I just buy enough to cover it. But
yeah, that's all you can do.
Hopefully it'll all work out in the end. But I love my kids to death. But it's a lot of work to try to build something to hand off. Because if you knew you weren't ever handing it off, like your farming approach becomes a little different, right? Like, if there's no next generation, Well, then you approach it a little different. Like at that point in time, maybe I'm a high cash renter and I never buy. I'm not saying that's a strategy, but that could be an approach because, well, that's short term potentially winning, not long term winning necessarily, depending on how you want to look at it. And it's all debatable. But, if I can make $20 an acre off everything, okay, well, I'll just rent a shitload of it, but I'm not saddled with debt. I can bail at any time on this rented ground. That's not the way I roll. I'd just soon own it, but.
Well, and a lot of this, too, the statistics get skewed. They always, Farm Bureau and all these dipshit groups always, make out, well, the average farmer's 58 years old. What are we going to do? I'll tell you
I've
what.
been hearing the average farmer is going to die off since I was in 4th grade.
Yeah. And they were like, well, what are we going to do? I'll tell you what we're going to do. The guys are already big are going to get real fucking big now.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, they act like this is some big mystery.
I mean, since we were in the 4th grade, they've been telling us that the average farmer is too old to farm. Those same guys who are 58 are still farming now.
Yeah, they're 85 now.
They're still farming now.
They didn't quit. So.
They didn't quit, yeah. They just own a lot more shit now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've always said, too, those numbers get skewed. The average farmer is this. Well, yeah, this guy's 50-50 renting, so he's technically still a farmer, but he actually hasn't done any of the work for eons.
How old's the average oil tycoon?
Yeah.
The guy that actually, when the rubber meets the road, the guy that actually owns the shit. Yeah, the oil field workers are 22 years old, grease monkeys, whatever we're calling them. There's a term for it. I can't think of it.
Roughnecks.
Roughnecks, there you go. But the guys that actually own the shit, how old are they? They're
Right.
probably 85 too.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
But they just own a bunch of shit. But there's boards and there's councils and there's stockholders and there's this, that, and the other. But the guys that actually own the majority of the shit, they're probably old too.
Yep.
The only difference is when stocks get traded, nobody hears about it.
Yeah.
I can hand off, 10,000 shares of this to you.
Yeah.
Outside of watching an old episode of Dallas, we'd never known that shit traded hands.
Yep.
Well,
like I say, when you talk to Farm Bureau and these different groups or read their stupid literature, they act like, the future may be bright for young farmers because all these guys are old and this and that. Well, I don't know about you, but in my area, I don't see any young farmers getting any kind of a deal on any of that.
No.
I'm not saying, and I can name probably 2 instances where a family sold it to a nephew who's trying to get started farming when they could have auctioned it off, but they went and sold it to the nephew, but he didn't get no deal on it.
Yeah. Mark whatever it appraised for.
It might have brought 10 at the auction. They let him have it for 9, maybe. You never know because you didn't have the auction.
Yeah, you never know at the auction. It could have went cheap. It could have went high.
Yeah. So, they portray it as, well, there's just going to be this big boom in land. All these young farmers can just buy everything they want for $1,000 an acre. Well, I know better than that.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing about ground is, and this is always my dad saying, well, that'll never pay for itself. You find me ground that pays for itself right off the get-go, I'll take all you can find. Any banker in the world will loan me the money for that. You'd be a fool not to.
Yep.
Unfortunately, nobody gave me that advice until about 2 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
Had they gave me that advice when I was 16, I'd own some shit. But, probably not. I'd been dumb then too. But I'd have maybe considered it a little bit more. It's like, well, only cash flows. You really only give $1,800 for it, and it's going to sell for $2,000. Yeah, you're right. I don't know where I'd come up with that $200. Instead, we'll jack around doing this, that, and the other, spending $200 a weekend on whatever. Yep. I could have easily made the
and the bad part is though is when you're 18, 20, whatever, you ain't really done anything by then to have enough of a down payment. Even back then when land was cheap, you still had to have, let's just call it $25,000. I don't know what the number would have been.
Yeah.
But you didn't have that kind of money laying around for the down payment.
No. But back then a farm sold for $80,000.
Right.
So
yeah.
If you got on the wrong side of it, you get a couple part-time jobs, you probably could have made it work.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys that didn't. It's not as easy as we're making it out at this point in time. But like a buddy of mine always tells me, life works backwards. You're young, you want to take some risk, but everybody that's old tells you not to. So maybe you do, maybe you don't. You don't have any money, but in retrospect, you should have leveraged everything you could have found, built what you could have. He's like, you get older, you should have some money if you made any right decisions at all, but now you're too freaking old to enjoy it. Now you can't go anywhere. You can't travel anywhere because you got to go to dialysis. You got to go get chemo. You got to go do this. You got to go do that. Your teeth are falling out. Your legs hurt. Your hips broke. You're getting a replacement this. You're getting a new knee. You can't go do anything. but you got the money for it.
I agree.
But you can't go do anything. When you're young, you can go do whatever you want, but you don't know any better. You spend your whole damn life working.
Yep.
So
there ain't a doubt in my mind when you look at some of the big high rollers in the area with what they've got in infrastructure and machinery and the pretty good pile of land that they own. There is no way I would continue to farm. If I was set on, I would literally dump it all. I don't care how much you like farm. I mean, what is the end game here? What's the magic number that we're trying to get to?
You know, I recently had that conversation with another friend of mine. And it's like, you know, right now with the ridiculous prices of things, there's a lot of people that could liquidate.
Sure.
And be generationally set.
Yeah.
But that's just not me. Like, once that ground leaves, you ain't coming back. You're never going to get it bought back, probably. And I always figure if my ancestors got on a wooden boat without a map to get over here because Europe sucked and settled here and started farming, put their plot down and busted their ass to do it, I'll be damned if I'm the one that's going to give it away.
Yeah. Does it change your mind if your kids come up to you tomorrow and said, you know what, the minute you die, we're going to dump it anyway?
Just had that conversation with a friend tonight before I come over here.
So do you not get to enjoy it because you don't want to be the guy, but now they're going to get to enjoy it all and not have to do shit their whole life?
And that was his point. He's like, you know, I bought this shit. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I'm making it work. But his kids told him, and he's cold, gone. That'd be a tough pill to swallow. I don't know what I would do in that situation. It's not a for sure lock that either one of my kids will want to farm, sure. But I'm assuming that they're going to be involved at some level. But like I told him, I'm like, can you take a 15-year-old's word for what they're going to do 30 years later? Like,
right.
I'm 40-some years old. I still don't know what I want to do. I sure the hell didn't know. I knew what I wanted to do. I probably knew better what I wanted to do at 15 than what I wanted to do now.
Yeah.
Just because what I want to do is be a full-time, big enough farmer to farm.
Sure.
But at this point in time, I'm on the backside of my life looking like, well, shit, how much more debt do I want to take on to try to make this happen?
Yep.
Where I was probably a little more optimistic at 15, but this generation's on the other side. They're like, well, what moron's going to try to collect X number of dollars of rent on this ground when I can sell it for $2 million, cash up front in the pocket and walk away? Can't really blame them for that. Yep. Like, that's not me, and I hope it's not my kids, but I don't really necessarily blame them for it. Like,
yeah. And the bad part is we don't know either. 10 years from now, I don't know. You may have to own 1,000 acres in order to make it work. I don't know. So at that point, what do your kids do then? It's like, well, we don't have it, so do I want to try to farm this and work in town? What do you want to do?
Yeah. I mean, it started off with people only farmed, and they didn't have to have very much ground. Then it got to where we want to expand the farm, so we had to have a job in town, and we got to farm. Well, it's getting to the point where we got to have 2 jobs in town and try to farm. I don't think the next generation is signing up for 3 jobs and trying to farm. Yep. I think they're going to say to hell with it. We're going to sell the farm.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't go that way. That's where rural America collapses when that happens. But
the part that has always bothered me is you get bit by the farming bug when you're young, and that's all you want to do, and is the only fucking job on the face of the earth that no matter how much you want to do it, it's a very good possibility that it won't happen. If you or I right here now said, I want to be a lawyer, it might take you a while, but you could eventually get through the schooling.
Yeah.
You might be a bad lawyer, but you could eventually say, hey, I got my certificate. I am a fucking lawyer.
Yeah.
But it don't matter how bad you want to farm.
Yeah.
It may not happen.
My life's a lot like Rowdy Burns, Tony, in Days of Thunder. When I was young, all I wanted to do is make enough money to work on pulling tractors. He wanted to work on race cars. I wanted to work on pulling tractors. Now I'm getting older. All I want to do is make enough money to farm.
Mm-hmm.
But how freaking stupid is it that I got to subsidize what should be a living?
Yeah.
Like, I got to have another job to subsidize my farming.
I agree.
Like that, that's dumb as shit. But here I am doing it. It's not that I haven't ever made any money farming, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And I love the shop and that too. And it's a nice balance back and forth. But there ain't a farm kid in America that's working I don't care if he's working at a gas station, working at Rural King, working at freaking a co-op. At the end of the day, working at his family's dealership, every one of those kids, if they could sign up to be a full-time farmer, would be sign up to be a full-time farmer. They would. You can try to paint it to me in this other scenario, but every one of those, like you could go up to some guy that's involved in a 5-store John Deere dealership right now, heir apparent, next generation in line. If he could choose, and he'd ever ran a tractor in his life, he'd choose farming.
Yep.
He'd shit can those 5 Deere dealers, and he'd just farm.
Yep.
Like,
that's what we need to do. We need to get the money together, get 1,000 acres and a line of machinery. And do you want to do it on your own for 1 year? We'll rent her to you.
There you go. You only got those places where you can go run a bulldozer or an excavator sitting there. It's your time to farm.
Yep,
it's your time to farm. You pay us $4 million a year, we'll let you have your 1 year of farming.
Yeah. But yeah, I've just always wondered, and I'm wired different when it comes to stuff like that with money, that I just don't understand the end game on some of this. You know, you're farming 10,000 acres, your son-in-laws don't care about it.
You got greed. I'll tell you what it is, it's greed.
It is.
A lot of it comes down to greed.
I don't understand that.
It comes down to greed.
And a lot of these guys, if they would just sell the machinery and the house that they lived in, you could still keep all the tillable ground that you got. Just sell that stuff that's actually useful to the next guy.
Yeah.
I mean, could live like kings, like you say, for multiple generations.
But yeah, I know where you're at, but
and it don't matter. I mean, whether it's a Bill Gates or you know, like why do them guys get out of bed? I mean, it's just they don't know any different. I mean,
no, once you're wired that way, I mean, you just keep doing it. I mean, Michael Jordan's a billionaire.
Yeah,
but he's still going to work every day.
Yeah,
you know, doesn't have to, but he is.
Yep.
You know. Jeff Bezos could just say, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to sit home and scroll TikTok before they ban it.
And I suppose
he's going to work anyway.
Maybe a guy like Bezos, Musk, take your pick. I wonder if they do enough playing behind the scenes that we don't ever see or hear about, that they're still doing both. You know, you and I just think, well, I just quit and I would just go travel the world, where them guys have already done that while they're working because they had the capital and the...
And it's what you know. It's like, it's what you do. You know, it doesn't matter what industry you're necessarily in. Like, once you're in, it's kind of, doesn't necessarily matter how much money you get on some of that. Like, that's all you know. Like, you know, success is, I just saw a quote on this here. I've seen it several times, but, you know, success is something blah, 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 and the rent's due every day or whatever it is. And that's true. Like, that just becomes what you do.
Yeah.
You know? And a ton of those guys could get out.
Oh, for sure.
They could stop. There's plenty of guys on Wall Street that could stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
But they're not going to.
There's a ton of farmers around here that could just stop and just farm what they own and make a nice living.
I'll equate it to gambling, though.
Yeah.
Like, how many people do you know that put $20 in, they win $1,200, but they're not going to get out? They're going to play it till they're down $600.
Yep.
And try to build it back to the 1,200 they had 25 minutes ago.
Yep. And I've always wondered, too.
It's human nature.
I wonder nowadays if social media has played a tiny, and I know this, people ain't making business decisions, but it's played a tiny role. You know, in the 80s, you know, there was rumors, you know, this guy farmed 3,000, and he probably did, but you didn't really know.
Yeah.
You know, because you just kind of seen him when they was in the field or whatever, But now you get these guys that they love to put it on social media. Our new 48-row planter, our new shop, our 18 semis lined up here, the new quad track. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like they get the kick off of. So it's like, we don't want to let this go because I don't want to show next year that, well, I had to sell the quad track because we're only farming 500 acres now.
Yeah.
You know, they don't. That feels like they're going backwards. You know.
No, you're probably right.
But I just don't give a shit about any of that. I truly don't. It don't do nothing for me at all. I mean.
Like I said, I'm not going to be the guy that, well, at least I'm trying not to be the guy that this is the way what my ancestors tried to bring over here. But don't mean I won't, but I'm trying not to.
Sure, yeah. But I'm not knocking big farmers for one. Is that knock yourself out. If you want to farm 25,000 acres, it don't bother me in the least. It truly don't.
Get after it.
I personally don't want the headache and all the shit.
I just want to make a few small amendments to the new farm bill. First off, if you can't prove that you have a pressure washer and that you've used it on your machinery recently, you're not eligible for subsidized crop insurance or any program for the next 10 years. You're done. You're done.
Yep.
It just floors me. And I realize it's a side tangent, but it kind of coincides here, so I'm going to bitch anyway. Some of the guys that bring stuff in, and it's like, you've got 3 hired men, and you bitch to me that you can't find anything for them to do here, there, wherever. Hand them a pressure washer. Hand them a grease gun. Like, it amazes me the filth that comes in on some of that shit. And I'm not saying all my shit's sitting around spotless, but I've rinsed it off here and there. Like, I can tell you, I've been on half a dozen service calls every spring, every fall, every year that basically come down to, this thing is too goddamn dirty to see where the leak was. Like, it literally, you took 2 wrenches, tightened it up, which is money in my pocket.
Sure.
So I shouldn't complain. But I'm like, if you'd have washed the damn thing, you could have saw where it was leaking and just tightened the fitting.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it was.
Yep.
But nobody bothered to wash it off. So we're like, well, we don't want to get our hands dirty at this point. Shit, it's leaking. Hell, it's oily everywhere. We'll just call somebody.
Yep.
Like I said, which is great for me.
Yep.
But
I've often thought, like with my new shop here, and it kind of goes off of like Combine Ryan there on TikTok. I'm not too sure a guy, like especially now when you talk how expensive stuff gets at Deere.
yeah,
I honestly think a guy could almost make a living if you just said, you know what, I'm going to open up a cleaning / combine inspection.
Yeah.
Get done the fall, you bring your combine, I'll clean it up, I'll inspect it, repair anything that's on it, and just figure out what it would cost you.
yeah.
Some of these guys, the amount of, we just covered earlier, talking about auto steer, the amount of laziness is just
And like I said, I'm not,
Believable.
I hate to go down that path, like, because farmers generally as a population are not lazy people. But like, I get tractors in that literally have not been washed since the last guy owned them.
Yeah.
And you ask the guys, like, you ever rinse this thing out? Oh, no. What, you think I need to wash it? Well, you're going to pay me to do it because I'm not about to touch that piece of shit. Like,
I
I'm going to
agree.
wash it. Like, it's ridiculous. You know, like, it just baffles me a little bit.
I've
Like,
always done that, like with our combine, before Deere does the inspection, which I clean ours every fall anyway. I mean, that thing's spick and span spotless. But the part that baffles me is people don't realize that combine's going to get cleaned before it gets inspected, whether you do it or you're going to pay them 160 or whatever the fuck their rate is, and they're going to do it.
they're going to do it.
So you just well do it yourself and be done with it.
They're not crawling around in that
Fuck
shit.
no,
And
they
I don't
ain't.
blame them.
No, I wouldn't either. Wouldn't expect them to.
It's miserable. Like, I just don't understand that at some level. Like, I'm not saying it's got to be buffed and waxed.
No.
But like, blow it off with the pressure washer here and there. Like, the hot rock remotes are always going to have a little oil on them.
Yep.
Rinse them off. It's okay. You can do it. It's okay, big boy. Get your pressure washer. You don't even have to have a hot water pressure washer. Like, you don't have to get badass, hotsy, this, that, and the other. You don't have to be the poster child for chemical guys or whoever, selling the best spray wash, whatever. But just rinse it down once in a while.
I see combines come into Deere like old 9500s and shit that I know damn good and well have not seen a garden hose for 15 years.
Since they were new.
It just
unbelievable.
unbelievable.
I just don't understand it. It's like, meanwhile, the guy's got a little pass to run his pickup truck through the car wash every 2 days, but my $500,000 combine, shit, I don't worry about that.
Yep. And I've said this too.
Can't believe this caught on fire.
Yeah.
This thing's running hot. I don't know what's wrong with it. Well, the radiator's completely packed full of shit.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about rinsing it out? I didn't know you could.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the listeners know, I'm getting ready to build a small shop here at my house. It's not the Taj Mahal by any means, 56 by 64. Don't get excited. I know, not going to make top shops with this, but I'm not looking to turn this into a toy box with pool tables and basketball hoops and volleyball nets and everything else. I'm not saying the kids, if they wanted to do that sometime, they're more than welcome to, but when I need something in that shop, that's what's going to be in the shop. I'm not building this as a playroom. And it just baffles me, these people that you see build these monster shops, and the first 40 by 120, it's recliners, couches, flat screen, just kitchen
The top
cabinets.
shop thing always pisses me off. I'm like, we got a 400-ton overhead crane. For what?
Yeah.
All your shit is less than 6 months old.
Yeah.
What are you picking? Are you picking your entire combine up by this hoist? No, you're not. And if it does need major repair, it goes to the dealer.
Exactly.
And you're going to drive one of your other 6 combines. Like, what are you doing in this shop where you need all this shit?
Yeah, it is mind-boggling.
But I do always say to you need to build 3 buildings. You build your shop, you build your cold storage, and you build your event center. Because otherwise you're going to try to rotate the same building through all those three things.
Right.
Because next thing you know, nobody's house is big enough to house the whole family. Well, we'll just have it in the shop. Mm-hmm. Wash the floor down with a hose.
Yep.
Rinse it all out the
Thanksgiving
door,
dinner right out in the shop.
Good to go. Well, so now we got a stove in there. Well, now we need a bathroom. Now we need this. Now we need that. Next thing you know, it starts to grow. Well, we'd like to have some entertainment. Now we got a pool table in there. We got a TV because, Grandpa wants to watch the weather, the news, whatever it is. So you need to build 3 buildings. So I'll go out and map these out. You don't have to heat the floor in all of them, but you need 3 buildings.
Well, I'm not saying my new shed, I wouldn't have a small TV to local news or something.
Yeah.
Not knocking any of that.
72-inch.
Yeah. But I've literally been in shops that have recliners and couches.
Absolutely.
It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, that's how we're spending our winter days, Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
And that's why I want to be a full-time farmer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I will assure you with 100% certainty there will be no pool tables in my shop. I will promise you that.
I wouldn't mind having that, but that's the other thing that irritates me about some of those guys. Like, and there again, I hate to keep bringing stuff like this up because I do have a great customer base, and I'm not talking shit on them, but I see a wide range of things that don't necessarily are directly related to me, but I got a lot of friends in the industry, so I hear of things and see things.
Sure.
So don't take all this to like all my customers are sitting at home playing pool and sitting in their recliners, but it's like, you've got Joe Farmer, and he's got all that same shit you just mentioned in his shop. But what he doesn't have is anybody that pressure washed anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
or you got
maybe play 9-ball instead of 8-ball.
Yeah.
Get done a half hour sooner, and maybe just hit the pressure washer for just a little bit. Half hour a week.
Yep.
If you do a half hour a week all winter long, next thing you know, all your shit's clean.
Yep.
By spring, all your shit's relatively clean, especially if you're going to take something to get it washed off. Because half those guys are going to piss and moan about the labor rate, right? And you just said it. They're going to clean it off before they work on it. So now you're paying them $85 to $185 an hour to wash your shit. And then you're going to bitch about the bill when you could have washed stuff yourself. But it wasn't worth $10 an hour to you to do it.
Yep.
So...
And then around here, you've got the guys that take it the other way. Workbenches are shellacked, not a speck of dirt anywhere. Literally pull the tractor outside on the rock to change oil so we don't get oil on the floor. It's like, what are we doing? I mean, what was the entire purpose of this building?
Yeah. It's an event center, Tony. Yeah. You're missing the whole point. You can't get on board with this.
Yeah, I get it, because I guess maybe I did overspeak a little bit there. I've been in other guys' functioning shops that are highly functional that has an old recliner that they were throwing out of the house, to sit there and drink beer. And I guess maybe I did misspeak there, but I've also been in others with like a fully furnished side of the shop, with nice furniture.
And I can see a point in that, depending on how you're setting it up to use it and how you maintain it and use it. I mean, I got a buddy of mine's shop that he's got a full living quarters, this, that, and the other. But by the same token, when I was traveling through there, I stayed there.
Sure.
Sure. He's like, here's the bedroom. Here's the shower.
Yep.
You're good. So you're not intruding into the house. He kind of lives in the middle of BFE. It's kind of handy. It's pretty nice. Like, hey, there's 3 or 4, 10 of us that end up meeting up there. Mm-hmm. Well, now we got a kitchen where we can have pizza and snacks, whatever. So I get all that. But
I guess, So maybe I should back up and re-clarify this. For the size of my shop...
Yeah, there's not room for that if you're going to do what you do.
I'm not saying we couldn't drag some of that stuff out there.
You get that 30-ton crane in there, there's not room for anything else.
Yeah. Not saying in the dead of winter we want to have a New Year's party, we can drag a couch out there, we can sit and watch TV, whatever, but guess what? When it comes time to pull the planter in, it's not going to make, I can't get it in here because the couch is in the way. Sorry, not going to happen.
Oh, yeah, when you want to pull your gleaner in, it'll be fun.
Oh, yeah. Yep. But, God, we went way long on this one. Everybody wanted podcasts, and here you go.
Yep.
So now you guys can shut up.
We'll teach you guys.
Yeah, no shit. We may do the 8-hour day. Who knows? Yeah, we probably do need
we better knock it off.
Yeah, everybody be getting bored and mad.
Clean your shops. Polish your recliners.
Yeah.
Don't be a jackass to your food service people.
Yeah, that's
your
right.
Dealership attendants. Your parts guy is not your enemy. He's your friend.
Yeah. Yep. And you guys, once again, if you're the ones buying the new shit, you're part of the problem. Quit buying it and they'll quit making it. Anyway, we got to cut her off here. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.